Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the annual Candidates Fair here at Chinook Winds Casino Resort Hotel. We'll be getting underway with our candidates' presentations in just a couple of moments. Some housekeeping business we would like to attend to at the beginning. First and foremost, on behalf of the Confederated Tribe of Siletz Indians, Chinook Winds Casino Resort, Lincoln City Chamber of Commerce, Lincoln City Kiwanis Club, the Lincoln City News Guard, KBCH Radio, KMPT, and KWDP. First off, thank you to the candidates for attending and for putting their necks out to serve. This is an important activity. It is an important tradition for this community as well. I would ask us all to rise, and I see Dee Pigsley, the chairman of the Confederated Tribe of Siletz Indians, has just come into the room. Dee, if you'd come up and lead us in the flag salute, would be appreciative. Ladies and gentlemen, Dee Pigsley.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Candidates Fair, again, is being streamed live by the News Guard and being broadcast on 3 AM radio stations here in Lincoln County. We got some housekeeping business, so you know that the format that we'll be running this afternoon, each of the candidates will be brought up one at a time. They'll be given 3 minutes to discuss his or her platform and reason we should vote for him or her. We will have a maximum of 3 questions per candidate. The questions, Nani Augustine from the Lincoln City Chamber of Commerce is here. She has forms. We're asking you to write the question down. We want questions, not statements. Questions is what we're looking for, not statements. We went to this format a few years ago when we had one gentleman that seemed to want to take over the Candidates Fair. And we finally had some discussions with him and told him to sit down and shut up. We didn't want to hear from him anymore. Candidate questions will be asked, maximum of 3 questions per candidate. Each candidate has a minute to answer each of the questions, and then a couple of minutes of summation, 1 to 2 minutes of summation at your close. We will begin this afternoon with the top race, statewide race for United States Senator. We only have one of the candidates that has attended or is attending. And where is Christine? Oh, here she comes. Christine Jean Luga from the Pacific Green Party will be our first speaker this afternoon. Christine, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming out today. My name is Christina Lugo. I'm the Green Party candidate for U.S. Senate. And I'm just here today to talk to you briefly about my platform and why I'm running for office. I was originally in the 5th congressional race, and this summer, Senator Merkley voted for Senate Resolution 498, which was the resolution supporting Israel at the time that the war with Palestine was going on. And as a Green Party candidate and as a peace activist, excuse me, it was very important to me to personally make a stand on this issue. The Green Party doesn't support war in the Middle East. We don't support war nationally in most cases. And so I felt that it was very important to at least make a symbolic stand about this particular issue. It was something that I felt strongly about. So that's the reason that I stepped into the race, and since then I've found that there's actually a lot of differences between the Greens and the Democrats in the federal race. I support a $15 an hour minimum wage. Senator Merkley supports a $10.10 an hour gradually increased minimum wage. I'm also against any selling of the ONC public lands or timber harvesting on the ONC public lands, which the reason that I feel that way is because I think that we have already depleted our forest resources so much, and I don't think that our forests can handle more clear cutting, and I don't think that cutting more timber on the ONC lands is going to produce many more jobs. I think that we really need to look at how to, revitalize our rural economies without relying on timber, because it's a monoculture economy, and just like any monoculture economy, it's bound to fail. It needs to be diversified. I also support a lot of environmental programs that I feel are really important. Like, I think that we need to invest more money in sustainable energy, such as wind and solar power. And we need to ban the use, we need to have at least a temporary ban on oil trains in Oregon and nationwide. The oil trains, the rail system has become a default pipeline for our Bakken crude coming out of North Dakota and also from the Alberta tar sands. And whether you believe it or not, we're really drastically affecting our planet by burning so many fossil fuels. And our planet is reaching a point of crisis. And we have to really look at how we use energy and try to find alternatives. That's really the most important thing that we can do for this century, for ourselves and for our children and our grandchildren, is take steps to reverse global warming. So, thank you.
Thank you, Christine. We have a series of 3 questions. First question would be, what should Congress do to head off the Ebola epidemic and other rapidly spreading life-threatening diseases?
Well, I mean, Ebola is definitely a concern right now, but I think that what we can do in the immediate, right away is, just to really thorough screening. I think that the CDC has been doing a great job, and I think that we really need to trust the advice that the CDC is giving to the president and giving to Congress, and also, giving to other international organizations that, as long as we need to do thorough screening and make sure that all of our healthcare workers have access to the proper resources. But we also, I'm against a travel ban for the same reasons that the president would be against a travel ban, because in the long run, it's actually going to come back and get us even worse. It's scary. It's definitely scary. And investing in good infrastructure and investing in health in Africa is really part of what we really need to do. We need to look at what's going on in Africa and how can we, invest in it so that it has the kind of resources that it needs too.
Next question, Christine, would be, what do you believe are the major national issues Oregon residents would want you to deal with as soon as possible?
I think that the most important issue right now is global warming. I really do. It's an issue that's going to keep on coming back to us every year, next year and the year after and the year after. It's the way that we treat our planet. I mean, our planet it's our home, and it's sacred, and we're not respecting it right now. We're dumping carbon into the atmosphere at way greater rates than the planet can handle. And I think that Oregonians are deeply concerned about this. I saw the People's Climate March in Portland, where thousands of people showed up who really want us to look at how we consume our energy and try to find alternatives. And really, just look at our federal policies too and change those.
Major question affecting the Central Oregon coast at this point in time is the helicopter being reassigned in Newport to Astoria and or Goose Bay. Could have a detrimental effect here in Lincoln County. Your thoughts on that and what you would do to help that situation?
I think the helicopter in Newport specifically?
Yep.
It's being moved to Astoria. I mean, I think that the fact that our fleet is, our NOAA fleet is in Newport is like a really great symbol, to people all around the country of the potential that we have for utilizing our bays and harbors. I think that, looking at how we can support what our coastal residents are saying that they need is important. When I was in Depot Bay last month for the candidates forum there, I talked to the mayor, and he talked about how in Depot Bay they really need federal support for reinforcing the docks and for, revitalizing the harbor. And in Newport, I mean, I think that anything that we can do to support the local economy is, good for all of our Oregonians.
You have 2 minutes of summation for your candidacy for United States Senate.
Well, thank you again, everybody, for coming today. I've really enjoyed this opportunity to speak with you. I've had a chance this campaign season to meet all of the candidates, Senator Merkley, Monica Webby, James Leuenberger, and Mike Montchalin. And they're all very good candidates. I have tremendous respect for Senator Merkley, and Monica Webby is a brilliant neurosurgeon, very capable person, and James Leuenberger has a really interesting take on things. I think that if you were going to vote for the Green Party this election season, you would do it because you wanted to support a candidate who would make the environment their #1 priority. I think that the environment is very, very important. And also, you would be voting for someone because you support progressive and liberal economic ideas, such as protection and strengthening of unions, strong minimum wage laws, workers' rights, protection for workers, for families, for children, strong public safety laws. And you would also be voting for someone because they would support a single-payer healthcare system, which most Greens do. I feel like the Affordable Care Act has been a really positive step forward, but it's still not enough. We still have tens of thousands of Oregonians who do not have health insurance. And I think that a single-payer system is the most cost-effective way of delivering health care. If you look at what they do in Canada and what they do in Western Europe, they have the best healthcare systems in the world, and they cover all of their residents. And I think that we need to seriously look at that as the next step. So those would be my platform issues. Thank you very much for coming, and I look forward to listening to all of you.
Thank you. Christine Jean Lindbergh, the Senate Green Party. We're going to get a short break, 60-second break, and we will continue with the candidates for U.S. Representative, Congress, 5th District in 60 seconds.
Set the candidate.
We are pleased and honored we will have all 4 candidates for U.S. Representative Congress, 5th District. Again, all 4 candidates will be given 3 minutes to talk about his or her platform. We will have a maximum of 3 questions per candidate, 1 minute of answer, and a couple of minutes of summation per candidate as well. I failed to note that Heather Hatton will be seated right down front, and she is the official timer. And if you see her waving her hands and throwing things at you, it means you talk long enough. But Heather Hatton from Chinook Winds Casino Resort, and special thanks to Chinook Winds, Heather, and the staff for making this event possible. Thank you, Chinook Winds. Now let's move to the U.S. Representative 5th District race. Our first speaker this afternoon for that race is from the Constitution Party, Mr. Raymond Baldwin. Occupation is small business general contractor. Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you very much, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for showing up today and being here. I really do appreciate the involvement of the public. It's refreshing. I would like to start by saying I'm Raymond Baldwin. I'm the constitutional candidate for the 5th Congressional District. I want you to know that there is a fundamental difference between me and the other candidates. I want you to know that I have never held political office, nor have I worked together like Tootie and Kurt have. What I would like to say is a few things, on the record here. First, I'd like to say that I have a website. It's called Raymond Baldwin for Congress 2014. You can go to it. I'd like you to go and hit the equal sign where it drops down. You can go to films and take a look at what's there on veterans. Our veterans are dying at 22 a day by suicide from these psychiatric drugs. And so if you get a chance, go to my website and take a look at that from Citizens Commission on Human Rights. If you want to check out what I stand for, you can check the Willamette Weekly, the Oregon's League of Voters, the Oregonian. Speaking of the Oregonian, I have today's paper in the Oregonian. You guys wondering how I'm going to stamp out corruption? Well, this article right here about the theft and the 35 people that got indicted, that's because they stole my truck. I'm on page A18, my son's there reporting it, and then of course I did the investigation. And when I turn it over to the DMV, let them take it from there. And it's an ongoing investigation, I can't really say anything about it. There's other areas that I'm working on corruption. Speaking of more corruption, if you go in the Oregonian, you'll see Clyde Ham Street did a report on the $250 million Care Oregon, and now the Attorney General, Kitzhaber, and all the people involved don't want it to be on public record. They just want a verbal. So we have to keep your eyes on that one. I'm here as a constitutional candidate because I want to restore the Constitution. We right now are operating under the United States of America Corporation, filed in Delaware in 2008. We need to get back to organic common law. We have this huge debt that we have, put it on the corporation, file bankruptcy, go back to the gold standard. I would like to say a few things about Kurt Schrader, because he is in the party. I don't know how much time I've got, but 30 seconds. Okay, first of all, vote no on 88. That repeals licenses for aliens. Kurt Schrader campaigned for that. He even admitted at Willamette Weekly. There's so many things he voted against. He voted against securing the southwest borders. He's not for closing the borders at all. And he also voted against litigating against the executive branch, which Congress passed, but Kurt voted against that. He also voted against holding Lois Lerner responsible for her stuff.
Sorry.
Okay, I need about a half an hour. But
Let's go to a couple of questions.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions?
Mr. Baldwin, first question handed in. Do you support the proposed 28th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution?
I don't support any constitutional amendments at this point in time. I don't want to see a constitutional amendment because that would bring us into a constitutional convention, which would allow them to alter the Constitution, which doesn't need to be altered because our forefathers did a good job of leaving us a roadmap to follow.
Next question. What do you believe are the major national issues in Oregon?
Well, in Oregon, the national issue would be partially unemployment, but I think I still have to go back to closing our borders. Our borders are the most important thing we can do right now. We've got people from 151 different countries coming in. A couple of days ago, they caught a couple of terrorists coming over the border. They're on their way to New York from the PKK, which is a terrorist group in Turkey. So we need to close our borders. We need to have as far as this comprehensive plan for immigration. We have plenty of laws on the books to deal with our situation exactly as it is and how it can be done. And there's plenty of visas available for those who want to come here and work legally.
And last but not least, what would you see happening to alleviate the helicopter situation in Newport and the Central Oregon coast, which is a critical issue to the beach?
Well, first of all, national defense in this country is second. I might point out again, Kurt Schrader voted against the defense appropriation bill, but yet he voted for moving detainees to other countries from Guantanamo Bay. Listen, there's a fundamental difference between us, and the voters are going to have to think outside the box for a change. I know you're used to the Republican and Democratic candidates, but this is a critical election. And these are critical times. And our future and our safety and our children's safety depend on making the right decision at the ballot box. So I'm hoping that you will vote for Raymond Baldwin, because I will fight for your rights. I'm doing it already. I'm just not getting paid for it.
Mr. Baldwin, 2 minutes of summation. Your candidacy for U.S. Representative, 5th District.
All right, well, like I said, we need to return to our constitutional roots. You know, things have been clouded, the issues have been clouded. They'd like to keep us in the dark, just like they're trying to do with this CARE Oregon bill. I point out that I'm totally opposed to the Affordable Care Act and some of the provisions that are in there. Now, Oregonian says that Kurt Schrader read it before he voted for it, and he voted for it. If you want to send somebody like that back to Congress, then you deserve the government you get. So I would introduce legislation to get rid of that. I would also reduce the crime by taking marijuana off the controlled substance list in the federal government and just get rid of it, because the federal government, we don't need it. We don't need the NSA in our business, or ATF, or NSA, or ATF, or all of these agencies that are watching over us. And I think if you look in the Women's League of Voters, you'll see that I'm opposed to them, and I'm willing to amend the Patriot Act to remove sovereigns from being spied upon. We have rights, and we need to push for those rights and stop being pushed around by progressives, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. So I'm asking you, when you go to the ballot box, to search your soul and figure out who you want to represent you. And you better get somebody that's going to fight for you, because we got nothing but battles coming up. So if you want somebody that's going to really represent you, vote for me, Raymond Baldwin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin. Our next speaker this afternoon is the incumbent, the U.S. Representative, 5th District, Democrat, Mr. Kurt Schrader. Occupation is U.S. Congressman. He's a veterinarian and small business owner. Mr. Schrader.
Well, thank you for holding the forum. It's always a pleasure to come out to the coast, and this is a great forum. Shirley Quinn does an excellent job. Great community partners, and good way to get people information. Hopefully, make good decisions come November 4th. As Roger alluded to, I'm a veterinarian. I'm a farmer. I've been a veterinarian for over 37 years. Raised a family of five kids on my farm outside of Canby. We have had to meet payrolls. We've had everything at risk, being self-employed like we are. We started both these businesses from scratch, and it gives us a unique perspective that I think is important to have in Congress about the trials and tribulations that a lot of folks face these days. I believe, I guess my values, if you were to sum them up, I believe in opportunity. I believe strongly in personal responsibility. And then I believe in community. I think those are Oregon values. I think those are coastal values that we all would agree on. I've been an effective leader, contrary to what you're going to be hearing here today. I've been an effective leader for this district over the last 5 years. The NOAA fleet moving to Newport, frankly, our office put our heart and soul into that, as did the communities, and we were successful in doing something no one thought was possible. We've actually been influential in the national debate on flood insurance. The Oregon coast and some of the valley was facing some pretty horrendous increases in insurance premiums. People are going to lose their homes. We were actually able to change that and include a higher deductible premium that came from folks at the coast. Your voice does matter. We actually were able to change things at the federal level on your behalf. We also have, despite the partisanship in Washington, D.C., a water resources bill that passed that increased the amount of money that small coastal ports can use for harbor maintenance now. Very tough to keep the dredging up these days. We were able to change that law with your help. That's the type of representative I think that you're going to need and you want to keep as we go forward here. The partisanship in DC is bad, but you can make things work if you're willing to work with the other side. I have a proven track record of doing that in the state legislature, do it as a businessman, and there's work to do, more work to do. I'm actually in a situation here where we're going to be working with members of Congress going back at DC to try and break through that partisan gridlock. A lot of stuff, we have to work on our debt and deficit. Job number one, to increase our opportunity here in this country for more jobs by getting people to invest a little bit in this country and feel good. Immigration reform is absolutely critical to the coast and frankly our country. Education needs to be improved. We can't be having these kids graduating with mountains of debt like they are right now. And a simple bill, Help 101, get our transportation infrastructure up and going for a long period of time, make sure it's available for folks here on the coast to take advantage of. And with that, I will stop.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Schroeder would include, do you support marine reserves and protected areas? Why or why not?
I support marine reserves that are decided by the coastal community. We've had a problem, as many folks know, in the coastal community where you end up with LCDC, or we've had a problem with BOEM more recently on the energy front, where they're dictating almost to the coastal community what the reserves are, where things are going to be placed. And it's been a problem. We've tried to encourage both those agencies to work much more closely with the coastal community. The fishing cannot be affected here. Fishing is the lifeblood of this coastal community. Very worried about all these projects. They could be great, but they need to work with the fishing fleets to decide whether or not it's appropriate to put them in different locations.
Any changes that you would make in Obamacare?
Yes, and we've been doing a little bit of that. As a small business person, very concerned how it's going to affect the business community. We actually changed one of the provisions called the 1099, would have been an onerous inventory laden process for businesses. We've actually also worked on trying to make sure that people that take too much of a subsidy have to pay it back in the appropriate time frame. We're working right now on the definition of seasonal worker and the 40-hour work week to make sure that it makes sense to businessmen and women and kind of empower people to feel like this Affordable Care Act is actually going to work for them at the end of the day. Good news is that it's already working in our state despite the horrible rollout of the exchanges. People are getting insurance. Our uninsurance rate dropped almost 60%. 95% of Oregonians now have insurance. You're getting actually better health care. I was at a doc meeting yesterday, and the doctors and hospitals were pleased to report that primary care visits are up, emergency visits are down, and people are feeling like they actually have better health care at the end of the day.
And as you travel the district, what is the number one major national issue from Oregon?
Major national issue from Oregon is work together. I can't tell you how many times at how many different forums that's been the byline. It's not about any given issue. Certainly the logging is a big issue in our state, sustainable communities, the coastal issues, the Coast Guard issue that we've got here, the new flood maps that we're seeing. Those are all very good issues, very strong issues. But when I talk to people, the biggest issue they ask me about is please work together and help solve our problems. We're all hurting here. Show us that you care in Congress, please.
Now, Mr. Schroeder, we have a couple of minutes for your summation for your candidacy.
Well, I'll elaborate on that a little bit. I do think it is the most important issue that faces this country, and it's certainly the most important issue that faces Oregon. We have to learn to work together. We all come from different stripes. Ray here is Constitutional Party, Marvin's Independent Party, Ms. Smith here is a Republican candidate, I'm the Democrat candidate. We have to learn how to work together. As a small business person, you work with everybody. You know, not just how you get jobs done. As a family, you work together, even if you don't agree all the time. I think we've lost sight of that. People are better at talking in Congress rather than listening. As a veterinarian, you learn how to listen to folks. I've carried it to a point where I'm a moderate Democrat. As I said, I have my values. I'm part of the Blue Dog, fiscally responsible, socially progressive group in Congress. I've actually formed a new caucus in Congress with a friend of mine, Republican from Wisconsin, Reed Ribble, called the Problem Solvers. And it's a group of Democrats and Republicans, actually we have one independent, the senator from Maine, that want to sit down, break bread together, and talk about things, how we can solve problems together. We have 9 bills we're all agreeing on and pushing out there at this point in time. And we actually are looking at playing heavily in some of the big discussions coming up when we get back to Congress after the election. But we need more problem solvers like Kurt Schroeder. I'd ask you to vote for me, please.
Thank you, Mr. Schroeder. Our next speaking candidate this afternoon, again for U.S. Representative 5th District, the Republican candidate, is Tootie Smith. She is a Clackamas County Commissioner and small business owner. Please welcome Tootie Smith. Tootie?
Thank you for having me. And thank you for showing up on this great weather at the beach. You may not know much about me, but I hail from a small town of Molalla, Oregon, in southern Clackamas County. I was raised on a farm, fourth generation Clackamas County resident and farmer. We have a hazelnut farm that my husband and I bought from our parents several years ago. We decided to raise our family there. We're also former owners of a logging company for many years, and we own a bed and breakfast in Molalla, Oregon. I first became aware of politics back in 1988 when they wanted to list the spotted owl as an endangered species. And my very first job then was as a citizen lobbyist to go back to Washington and convince those congressmen that what they were doing were going to hurt our communities. It would take away funding from schools. It would deplete our road funds to fix our roads, and it would hurt our public safety. And lo and behold, it's taken this long, and sure enough, we're living that reality. And the reason why I decided to run for Congress, after serving in our own state legislature and after serving at the Clackamas County Commission, 70% of the people say, I'm not happy with the way this country is going. They're not getting anything done. And as Mr. Schrader alluded to, that's true, they sit around and talk a lot. The biggest issue facing this election, I feel, is the work, is the jobs, and Obamacare. In CD5, we have 60% of recovery of pre-recession job loss. I'll say that again, 60% recovery of pre-recession job loss. Whereas in Washington County and Multnomah County, they're way over 100%. Clackamas County, Marion County, and the counties down on the coast are desperately affected by what we have best in CD5, and that's our natural resource base, with our farming in the Mid-Valley and some farming down here, our fisheries on the coast, and we need those commerce jobs. And I look at Congress and I say, gee, you keep passing regulations like the EPA, like the ESA, like the FEMA regulations, and the bureaucracies in Washington, D.C. are frankly out of control. And I don't see this Congress wanting to stop them, whether they are Democrats, whether they are Republicans, or the one independent back there. I think they need to not stop talking, but start doing something, take firm action. And I'm fed up as much as you folks are. I've known Oregon to be a prosperous Oregon. When I graduated from high school in the mid-70s, we could go out, my generation could go out, get a job, and actually make a family wage living. Many of us married when we were 19 or 20 years old. We were able to go out and pay rent, buy a car. But I don't see that with our young folks anymore. We have college graduates who have a degree, but yet they move back home because they can't make enough money in the field they're trained in to be able to go out and be prosperous. And I think that's a crying shame. We need to get back to thinking about jobs and eliminate the barriers of government regulation that's getting in the way. Am I finished?
You are done.
Thank you.
I have questions for you, though, Tutti. First question has been handed in. My question is, would you vote to repeal the Obamacare subsidies that have allowed my wife and I to afford health coverage?
I think the Obamacare has a lot of troubles with it. As I travel the district, what I see from talking to people, and especially people in retirement age or working class families who don't have insurance through their employer is, gee, I signed up for this policy, or I had my policy, my premiums have increased, my deductible has almost doubled. I've been thrown out of my private provider, and they put me over here. And quite frankly, I'm not secure about what I'm going to get to the future. Mr. Schrader talked about trying to eliminate the 30-hour designation for full-time employment. Well, as a matter of fact, he voted against that when he voted against H.R. 4. It's right in the bill. So he says he wants to do away with that, but he actually voted against H.R. 4. Next
question. Do you support the proposed 28th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution?
I assume you mean the Equal Rights Amendment?
I just read the question.
If indeed that's what it is, the Civil Rights Amendment, well, of course I do.
No, what it is that Congress cannot pass
a law that does not apply to them equally as it does to the rest of the people in the country.
Thank you, Lou. I believe you asked me that the other night, and I just had been asked about the Equal Rights Amendment. Of course, I am for rights for women. You know, that's the trouble with Obamacare. Congress exempted themselves when they voted for it. They exempted themselves out of Obamacare. That's not right. As a Clackamas County Commissioner, I have medical benefits with my job, but they're the exact same benefits that every other employee has at the county, and that's the way it should be.
And the final question we would have for Tootie Smith is, again, the helicopter situation in Newport, Central Oregon coast, and its effect on fishing and life-saving here in the county. What would you do to help alleviate the situation?
Well, first of all, I would not have voted against the military appropriations that the incumbent voted against. That needs to be funded. I believe the decision was made about money. Geez, nobody out here in Oregon is giving the budget makers in Washington, D.C. any attention to our needs. We can't have a helicopter flying from Astoria to rescue a fisherman that's right out here. I understand there were 6 rescues yesterday. Holy cow, I can't even imagine. And we're not even in winter yet. I think that needs to be funded. And I think our congressmen who have written a letter, I saw it in the newspaper saying to fund it, should not vote against the very thing that they want funded. Excuse me.
And Tootie, you have 2 minutes of summation for your candidacy for U.S. Representative 5th District.
Mr. Schrader claims many things. He's claimed he started all these groups and they sit around and talk and, you know, they form this and they form this. Well, how much success have they had? If you want somebody to go back and sit around a campfire and sing Kumbaya all day and get nothing done, continue with Mr. Schrader. If you want somebody who's going to go back there and represent your interests, who is not afraid to challenge the status quo, hey folks, you aren't working, that is not afraid to challenge the power brokers in my own party, where they will probably stay in power, vote for me. I think I can make a difference. I have done it before in the state of Oregon when I was a deputy majority leader. I have done it at the Clackamas County Commission on changing policy and changing status quo to be more receptive to the people. And that's what I'm all about. Thank you.
Tootie Smith, and our 4th and final candidate for U.S. Representative 5th District is an independent candidate, Marvin Senes. Marvin owns and manages a real estate office in Salem since 1974. Please welcome U.S. Representative 5th District candidate, Marvin Senes. Marvin?
Thank you. I'm Marvin Senes. I grew up in Mount Angel. I've been in the Willamette Valley my whole life, except for some years in Portland State. I know your ocean. I'm an ocean sailor. I learned this ocean from the fishermen at the Garibaldi boat basin. And I sailed out of Newport for 7 years. I filed to run for this federal office to raise this issue of our war and 9/11. We've talked about these issues that are important. We are at war. This morning there are 100,000 contractors in Afghanistan, 30,000 troops. We spend $4 billion a week in Afghanistan. We're at war in Iraq, we're at war in Syria, we cross the border of Somalia, Yemen, Pakistan at will. We torture now as policy. We have 150,000 veterans, homeless, on the streets of America this morning. We don't pay for our wars. We're $16 trillion in debt, and I think we were even when Clinton left office. When these militarists gained power in Washington, you know, this war on terror is a fraud. Only less than 50 Americans have been killed in the United States by terrorist acts since 9/11. And this comes from the National Terrorism Database in Maryland. So what are we doing? What are we doing? Why are we in Afghanistan? We have 1,000 military installations in 137 countries around the world. You know, when Kurt talked about working together, that's why we're so angry with one another. America has lost our moral compass. You know, we've been living off the World War II. We began that war in 1939, and at the end of World War II, they figured out a way to continue. And we're doing that today. We're living off of that moral imperative. And this is just wrong. 80% of the casualties in our wars are women and children. 80% of the people who these Tomahawk missiles are hitting are women and children. We don't talk about this. We don't talk about this. It's not in the paper. Now, I know this talking about these deaths and those homeless veterans does not touch a chord, but I want to give you some numbers that may touch a chord. We're $17 trillion in debt. You got to understand quantum mechanics to know how big a number that is. Now, you look at that debt and multiply it by 3%. The interest on 17 trillion is, I think it's 500 and some billion. The Internal Revenue Service collects, I think it's $1.3 trillion every year. So how much do we have to spend for what we need?
Mr. Senator, your time is up.
Yeah, this thing, we're going down a cliff. We're going down a cliff, and we've got to change that. Thank you.
The microphone.
Yep, get you close to the microphone as well. Questions, Mr. Senator, for your candidacy. Do you approve of, or would you vote for appeal of Obamacare?
I support Obamacare. I think it's the kind of thing that government has to do. Medical costs, medical research, it's so expensive now that we have to have. There's some things that governments just have to do. You know, we can't expect to build a Newport Bridge with some a local. We've got to have government to do that. We've got to have government to do defense, and I think we have to have government now to do health insurance.
Do you support the Marine Reserves and protected areas? Why or why not?
Yes, I do support them. I do support them. We, as a group, we need to take care of. Of our environment, and I think if we do things like this, it sets us morally in that direction. So, yes, I support that wholeheartedly.
All right, and final question, what would you do to alleviate the gridlock in Washington, D.C.?
Wow. First of all, we've got to recover our press. We no longer have a press in the United States, a free press. You know, they had this war. It's called the Iron Triangle. The military contractors, the corporations, the Congress, and the Pentagon. Now we've added a fourth corner to that triangle, and it's our press. What did we do when we wanted to go into Syria? They did the false flag gassing thing, where they gassed those children, and then they found out it was it. We had this horrific YouTube beheadings. And that got the country to go bomb in Syria. We've got to have a free press. We've got to make the press, and I don't know how to do it. How are we going to get those? I mean, they have to say what they're told to say to them. And Kurt, I like Kurt. I think he does a good job. But after they're there for 2 or 3 terms, I think their mission becomes to protect their job. And how do we stop that? I think we've got to have term limits. Campaign limits and term limits so that we have a turnover in our Congress.
Sir, you've got 2 minutes for your final summation on your candidacy for U.S. Representative 5th District.
Well, I want to talk about this moral direction. America is a good place. We're educated, we're intelligent, we're motivated, we're religious, spiritual. We're good people. Where the heck are we going? We've got to raise this moral question to the level of a political discussion. We need to talk about this. You know, I have this, I want to talk about 9/11 a little bit. We did not have, the law requires a fire investigation, a criminal investigation, and an NTSB investigation for those 4 airliners that were lost. We have not had that. We declared war on the 4th day. On the 14th, George Bush declared war for the National Cathedral pulpit. The following June, he declared war on the whole world. He said, we will go wherever we have to go. We're gonna get terrorists wherever they are. And we've been doing that for 13 years. We've got to ask the question, is this right or is this wrong? I think it's horrible. I think it's horrible. We've killed 2.5 million people in the last 13 years, and we have to accept responsibility for that. The price of this war, we're charging it to our great-great-grandchildren, for crying out loud. This is wrong. These men that have fought in the war, men and women who have fought in the war, who are homeless this morning, we have to take care of those people. We've got to pay for it, accept responsibility for what we're doing. It's a tough message. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Marvin Dennis, we're going to take a 1-minute break, and we will be back with candidates for governor of the great state of Oregon in 60 seconds. Again, if anybody has questions of the candidates, Donnie Augustine from the Lincoln City Chamber of Commerce has the forms for you to write the question down and be delivered to me up front. Thank you.
Are you getting the fun of the commercials? No. Okay, so I gotta believe it's the refreshing like you.
Heather? Welcome back again to our live candidates fair. This is being broadcast on KBCH, KMPT, and KWDP, and then run live, streamed live by the News Guard on their website as well. The candidates fair is taking place inside Chinook Winds Casino Resort Hotel. We invite anybody that may be listening and or watching to come down and join us as well. For those in the audience, if you're interested in questions to any of the candidates, Nani Augustine is here from the Lincoln City Chamber of Commerce. She has forms for you to write the question down. It is handed to me down front. Let us continue again. We now move to the gubernatorial races. We have a number of candidates for governor of the great state of Oregon. The first candidate is a Constitution Party candidate, Aaron Auer. Where's Aaron? Right down front. Aaron is the circuit rider minister of the gospel, and the occupation is self-employed pioneering pastor. Aaron?
Thank you very much. I'm really honored to be here. Thank you for the opportunity today to hear about our great roots and heritage and history of Oregon. I love Oregon. I was raised and taught to love Oregon, and I love all Oregonians. And I love past Oregonians. You see, this man right here is a great, great hero to all of us. His name is Hehokostikin. And he was sent of the Nez Perce tribe back in 1831 in search of the book of heaven, the Bible, the Holy Scriptures, because Creator had been given many dreams and visions to Native Americans and chiefs and braves about a book coming, and a race of people with light, white, pale skin were going to bring it. And when they made their endeavor, 1831, 1832, it was sent from their big council. They showed up after several months. There's a farewell speech. I'll just reference it here. But they found General Clark from the Lewis and Clark expedition making requests for the white man's book of heaven. And when this was circulated, thank God there was good journalism of the day. They reported on it accurately. The Indians were calling for the Bible. That's when the nation handpicked its finest, Jason Lee, Oregon's first missionary. And he was thrust out here in 1834 and established the Oregon Mission with Indian children, which became Willamette University, the first and oldest university west of the Rocky Mountains. Jason Lee, the founding father of Oregon, is the founder of the education of Oregon. And even the forming of the provisional government there at Champoeg, the historic vote that took place there 1843, 52 for, 50 against. A few weeks later, Jason Lee, and we have documentation here where he was the chairman, and those missionaries swore in the first organic law of the provisional government, those 11 legislators. And so we have a great, rich, rooted history in the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ, with the work of the Lord, with the education, and with the governmental movement. And if we don't know our history and our heritage, which he represents us in Washington, D.C., Jason Lee, again, the founder and father of American civilization in Oregon, we must preserve our roots. If we don't know where we came from, how in the world can we proceed to finish what they started? So yes, I've been on the circuit telling the whole state of Oregon, and now it's manifested in a way. I thought if somebody knew our heritage and would tell the truth, we could put them in for governor, man or woman. And I begin to look for you. And people begin to say, Aaron, why don't you do it? And I said, do what? And here we are now on the ballot for the governorship of Oregon.
All right, Aaron, we have some questions for you. What will you do to support or promote Oregon's environmental literacy mandates?
That's a great question. The environment is very important. Environmental things that the Lord has given us in the natural. But if we don't get the spiritual environment correct first, then we can't make proper judgment for anything. And that's why there's a scripture right here in Psalm 22, verse 28. It says, for the kingdom is the Lord's, and he is the governor among the nations. You know, there was a great flood once. Thank God for Noah, preacher of righteousness, built and preached for over 100 years to save the earth. That's a good environment policy. But there's coming a day again when the heavens and the earth will be destroyed with fire. So we ought to prepare ourselves for that great day, the coming of the Lord. And I closed before a minute, right? Is that a miracle for a preacher?
What are your concerns for coastal communities such as Lincoln County?
Well, my grandfather, great-grandfather, he lived here in Lincoln City. He was a dairy farmer. I was raised on the Our Jersey farm down in southern Oregon, which they produce the highest quality raw milk in the state. So you can see I'm for the hardworking Oregonians, the farmers, ranchers, miners, and lumberjacks. But he lived here in Lincoln City there, John Our. And my grandfather was with the auxiliary, Coast Guard Auxiliary, loved to fish. I actually led him to the Lord fishing on his boat when he was in his 80s. And he taught the Coast Guard Auxiliary. And so we need to make sure that we have a protection of our coast range. And that's why we need to reinstate the militia. Thank God for the militia according to state constitution. We don't even know what it is. I'm not sure I fully understand, but I do know that the National Guard is not the militia. And the governor of Oregon is the commander-in-chief of the militia, which we need to make sure we find out and organize and have a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state.
How well do you cross party lines between Republicans, Democrats, and Independents?
Well, I think I'm like the Lord. People either love me or hate me. And I just love the truth, regardless of party. I believe it's not time to make sure that we look for the person, not party. Because the truth is more important. And the scripture says if we don't love the truth, we'll believe a lie and be deceived. And so I just been telling the story the same way to the 1, to the 100, or to the 1,000. I've sat down with nearly well, not all the legislators, but many, after we went around the whole state in 2009, the sesquicentennial. Maybe you were at one of our meetings there, giving honor to our great heritage, and Heo Castigue and Jason Lee, and and telling the legislators, sat down with nearly 40 of them personally, telling them about the Circuit Rider statue on our Capitol grounds adjacently. And so I believe we need to go to all to tell the truth and unite in the truth, not just for the sake of uniting, because if you not unite in error, that's worse. There's more deception. So let's unite in the truth and go to all.
Sir, you have 2 minutes for final summation for your candidacy for Governor of Oregon.
Yes. I want to read something here. There was, let me show you this here first. The Salem story. This is what they used to teach in our public schools, 3rd grade curriculum. They got it right. They talked about our founding father of Oregon, Jason Lee, and the Indians sought for the Book of Heaven. He was a great man. He helped win the Oregon country for the United States. How in the world could somebody do that without the Lord's help and assistance? There are certain things that are so important here to get right. But if we don't seek the Lord and His counsel, and like Psalm 127 says, unless the Lord keep the city, they that watch rise up in vain. We need the Lord's help, like our founding fathers. Righteousness exalts a nation, the scripture says. When the righteous are in authority, Proverbs 29 verse 2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. It's good for all men. It's good for all people when there's righteous in authority. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. That's part of our problem. Most of our problems is we have not been preserving the way it used to be. And that's why I'm asking all Oregonians, are you ready for a governor who will govern with the governor, the Lord Himself, the Book of Heaven, our heritage, and the Constitution? Yea or nay? That's my question. Because if we can get that right, the Lord will bless us and help us in every area of society. And when they dedicated that Circuit Rider statue preacher in 1924, the judge of the day, as the governor, honored the pioneer preachers, but he said the pioneer preachers with rare self-sacrifice and devotion to a belief typify in a degree the spiritual influences that have permeated and characterized our civilization and our social and political structure, giving honor to those pioneer preachers preaching the Word of God that brought about the truth and the help of all society that was permeated. And then,
Aaron, you're out of time.
wow, I didn't see that, so we finished up good. God bless you all. Thank you very much, and blessings to you all in our great state. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ.
Thanks.
We have one further candidate for governor, great state of Oregon, from the Pacific Green Party, Jason Levin. Jason Levin. Welcome, Jason Levin.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. I'd like to thank Chinook Winds for hosting this event. Aaron is obviously a tough act to follow, but I'll do my best. I am running for governor because, like most of the Oregonians with whom I have spoke, no one is satisfied with the lackluster choice that we have facing us for governor. I don't know anyone who's voting for Richardson. I don't know anyone who's voting for Kitzhaber. They're voting against the other guy. And that's a sad state of affairs. I think we can do better. And so I'm running because I want my children to understand that you don't have to settle for less. And so I sat down with some friends and we started talking about what we could do to help make Oregon an even better place. And the first thing we came up with was universal single-payer health care for all legal residents of the state. That is not just something that creates jobs, because of everyone who has earned the right to retire but can't because they need that job for those benefits, of everyone who would like to leave their job but can't because they're afraid of losing the benefits or afraid of providing benefits for their future employees, if those people could, if they could be guaranteed that they would get the medical treatment that they deserve, because let's face it, that's a human right. We say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in America. Well, if we're not protecting your life medically, then how are we valuing that human right? So for starters, single-payer health care, we're already paying for it. Why shouldn't we make sure that every legal resident of the state has it? And that will reduce class size, because every veteran teacher who'd like to retire, for every veteran teacher who retires, we can hire 2 younger teachers to come in, and we'll have a smaller class size. And as I said, it's a job creator. Second off is education. We have some gargantuan school districts in this state, and they need to be broken up into smaller, more efficient entities. I worked in public education here in Oregon for a couple of years. I was shocked at the amount of waste and bureaucracy, and we are simply not taking care of our kids the way we're supposed to. And so we need to break up these big districts. We need to make them smaller, more efficient entities, and we need to bring back voc ed education. My father was a voc ed educator for 30 years, taught culinary arts in the city of Philadelphia. So many of his students, both special needs and mainstream kids, went on to wonderful careers, because rather than pushing kids through a K through 12 system so they have the opportunity to take out these loans so they can fund for-profit schools like Le Cordon Bleu and ITT and the Art Institute, we should be giving our young people the skill set they need so that when they graduate from high school, not everyone is college bound and not everyone should be. When they graduate from high school, they should be viable members of the workforce. Legalization of marijuana, I'm the only gubernatorial candidate who will say that this is something that is going to happen. The other two have their heads in the sand, they're not even willing to discuss it. And I think that it's something that it could be good for the state if we do it correctly. I work in the legal cannabis industry, and so I've been watching Colorado and Washington very closely. I think we should follow the Colorado model, and I'm out of time.
Sir, follow-up question in reference to your statements on sizes of school districts. Lincoln County is one big school district. Would you propose to see Lincoln County split?
Absolutely. And basically, I think that you can do a north-south, you can do an east-west. If it's a gargantuan district like Portland Public or Beaverton, you can even break it up into 4 quadrants. And the reason is we are paying these superintendents and these bureaucrats a ridiculous amount of money to waste our time and waste our money. And you could have a far more efficient entity if you just broke it into a smaller, it's what we did with the phone company. It's what we do periodically in America. When something gets too big, when it's too big to fail, it's too big. And our school districts are too big.
What is the single most important issue in the state of Oregon?
As I said, it's healthcare. That is what is causing people to lose their homes. It is what is keeping the pipeline of job creation clogged up. My parents are baby boomers. I've watched them struggle and deal with all the different iterations of healthcare. And if we simply gave every legal resident access to that universal single payer system, I think we'd be living in a much happier and much more productive place.
And again, the question in reference to the helicopter being pulled out of Newport and off the Central Oregon coast, what would you do to call attention to that and or reverse that potential decision?
I think it's reprehensible. People are going to die, and that helicopter's coming back, and it's going to cost lives to get it back here, and that is not okay. And so we need to shine a light on that in the public forum. That's one of the things, it's the governor's job to do that kind of thing. But I think we also need to make sure that the money is there. And I've often said, you can't have unfunded mandates, and that's one of the reasons why I'm the only Green Party candidate you're ever going to hear from who's pro-timber. We need to put our forests back to work for rural Oregon. We're laying off sheriffs, we're closing roads, and this is a prime example. The money would be there if we simply used what we have as a sustainable natural resource to bridge that gap.
Mr. London, you've got 2 minutes for summation of your candidacy for governor.
I think I left off in I have a 4-point platform. It's healthcare, education, legalization, and jobs. And so I left off with legalization. Legalization opens the door to grow hemp. That's $1 billion a year industry for the state of Oregon. You can make so many things. If you never have, I highly encourage you to Google hemp. You can't get high from it, but it looks just like marijuana, and so you can't grow it in a state where marijuana is illegal because you can't tell the two apart. So that's the final thing that we would do by legalizing marijuana, is it would allow us to grow hemp. And then jobs. If we have single-payer healthcare, if we repair our overburdened educational system, if we legalize marijuana, which is a job creator, then the jobs come along with those first 3 decisions. That's all we need to do to make this a happier, healthier, better place to live. People often say that if you vote for a third-party candidate, you are throwing your vote away. If enough people simply threw their vote away, the people in Salem would have to sit up and take notice that the people of Oregon are not happy with the lackluster choices that you have. And so to that end, I ask you, please throw your vote away on me. Thank you very much for having me.
Chris We'll take a 60-second break. We're going to return. State Representative 10th District. And Mr. Gonberg is next. And again, we remind you, if you've got questions, Nani has the forms for you to write the questions down, hand it up to me, and we will endeavor to get them on the air for you. Special thanks goes to Chinook Winds for all of the refreshments that are in the back as well. Most appreciative. And again, we continue with the Candidates Fair live from Chinook Winds Casino Resort Hotel. And again, this is being streamed live by the News Guard and is being broadcast live as well on KBCH, KNPT, and KWDP. For those candidates that did not attend, you will not be given additional free access time to the radio stations. You had to be here to participate. We move now to State Representative, 10th District. Mr. David Gomberg is nominated by the Democrats, the Independents, and the Republicans. He has the easiest race going in this election. Mr. David Gomberg, soon to be re-elected State Representative, 10th District.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. I am David Gomberg, and if you live between Yachats and Tillamook or inland as far as Sheridan, I am your state representative. I'm finishing up my first term in the Oregon legislature, and during that time I've talked an awful lot about prosperity here on the coast. I think prosperity begins with jobs, with good jobs, with family wage jobs. And that's so important here in the North County, where the median family income is $27,000. $27,000. You go up and down the coast here, you see help wanted signs in all the windows, and we've got 7.5% unemployment. But if you do the math, you find that people who pay rent and pay childcare can't afford to take a minimum wage job. That's a problem that we've got here. I don't really think that minimum wage jobs were ever intended to be a career track, but so often they turn into one here at the coast. I think our challenge is to help today's employees become tomorrow's employers. That's why I'm so passionate about supporting our Small Business Development Center at the community college that helps turn new businesses into thriving businesses. I'm the one that introduced a measure to actually reduce taxes on small businesses that hire part-time employees, a tax break for small businesses. And I got involved with creating the Office of Small Business Advocacy so that small businesses have a place where they can call and they can get help and they can get attention, and we can begin the process of cutting red tape. And finally, I talk an awful lot about education, because I think that our schools, our colleges, our universities are the ticket to prosperity for the kids that are here at the beach. I was proud to be part of a coalition that passed in the last session the largest budget for schools in the history of Oregon, $1 billion more for education. But our problem is that as the recession continued for so long, we cut and cut and cut, that even with this new money, we're lagging 3 weeks behind the national average in teaching days. We have the 4th largest classrooms in the state of Oregon, and we need to continue the work of improving education for our kids and our grandkids, because I think they deserve the very best education that we can provide them. Now, I also talk a lot about our magnificent environment. We live in one of the most wonderful places in the world, and it is our responsibility to preserve that environment for future generations. It's also our responsibility to preserve jobs for people that depend on renewable resources for their families' living wage jobs. And I think that we can have it both ways if we work very carefully to work with this delicate compromise in preserving the environment and also preserving the jobs that depend on it. And finally, I talk an awful lot about seniors. And too often I hear that our retired community is a burden to our local communities. And you know, I believe that's completely wrong. I believe the exact opposite, because I see people that have spent a lifetime building experiences and now have the free time to make our communities much more vital. They contribute to our education system. They contribute to the arts. They contribute to local government. But the unfortunate fact is that we have as many as a third of our seniors here at the coast that are living below the poverty line and are stuck in fixed income situations, which is why I worked so very hard to fund the Project Independence program, which will keep people sustained in their own homes. I worked very hard on rural transportation. I worked very hard introducing legislation that would help people stay in their own homes and not be priced out of them by property taxes so they could defer those taxes. I worked very hard on, am I running out of time, Roger? Well, then I'll wrap this up and say, I don't think that we can all agree on the priorities. We don't all agree on the solutions, but I think if we work together, we can make Oregon a much better place.
Mr. Gunberg, how would you pursue or support efforts to protect watersheds for fish, wildlife, and local drinking water? If so, how would you do that?
Well, as I said, I think whenever you consider an environmental issue out here at the coast, you deal with a very delicate balancing test. Preserving the environment and preserving the jobs that depend on that environment. And you know, it's easy to be an environmentalist in the city. It's more difficult to be an environmentalist out here at the coast. I'm proud to tell you that I am the only member of the Coastal Caucus, House or Senate, Democrat or Republican, endorsed by the League of Conservation Voters. But I'm also endorsed by the Oregon Loggers Association. That's an interesting balance. And I'm very proud of the work that I've done to work together within the Coastal Caucus to find that delicate balancing process where we can have it both ways.
Right now, a lot of controversy is surrounding the governor and the first lady. Any response to the question?
Well, I'm glad I wasn't at the governor's mansion for dinner on Thursday night. Look, I know Sylvia Hayes, and I listened very carefully to her comments, and I found her to be sincere and regretful and apologetic. And I, for one, accept that apology. I have things in my past that I'm not particularly proud of. I'll tell you that I didn't break the law, and my wife knows about them. But the fact remains, I think we need to look at this in a larger context. Of all the things that we've learned about Sylvia, among them is the fact that she is bright, capable, that she started a business with nothing and made it successful, that she loves her community and she loves her state. And the question that I ask is, when we have bright students like that, how can we put them in a situation where they have to consider breaking the law to pay their college costs? She didn't do this to buy crack. She did this, as I understand it, to pay her tuition, to pay her rent, to buy a computer. And if she's embarrassed about what she did, I think that we can be a little embarrassed as well.
And let's follow it up with education. What would you do, again, to support further funding for the community colleges?
Well, I don't think it's any secret that I've been a vocal advocate for our community colleges, a persistent advocate. My wife calls that being a nag, but I think it's good to be a nag on some questions. I think our community colleges are the tool that we use to prepare people for the jobs that we've got available in a particular area. They help students complete their basic education. They help other students cut the costs of going to a university. I'm very pleased that when we increased funding for K through 12, we did the exact same thing for our community colleges. And we need to do that out here at the coast, where we have increasing enrollments, but flat support from the state over the last number of years. And we have some of the highest tuition in the state. So I'm going to continue to advocate for our community colleges. I think they're a core part of our recovery here.
David, you have a couple of minutes for summation again for your candidacy for re-election.
Well, you know, I'm supported by a number of different parties, and so I'm going to be reelected, but I'm still here. I'm here because I think it's important for all of you to see your representative, to ask questions of your representative, to hold your representative accountable, to hold me accountable. And that's why I've spent the last 2 years crisscrossing this wonderful but sprawling district. I'm a small business owner in a small business district. That puts me in a unique place in the capital because there are fewer than 5 people in the building that actually own a cash register. And now I'm endorsed by the Democrats, the Republicans, the Independents, and the Working Family Parties. I'm very proud of that bipartisan, multi-partisan support. My wife refers to me as the lesser of one evil, which I think is a pretty good line. But I got to tell you, I'm proud of that support, and I hope that I will not simply receive your vote, but I'll receive your affirmative vote, because this is the hardest work that I've ever done, but it's also the most rewarding work that I've ever done, and I'd be very proud to go back to Salem and represent you all for another 2 years.
And may I be the first to congratulate you on your re-election. David Gunberg. Again, we're going to take a short break and we'll return and move on to our county commissioner race. We have 2 candidates in the House, We will talk to them in 1 minute. Again, if you have questions that you would like to have asked, Connie is in the back. She has the information sheet. My special thanks to the NewsGuard staff for preparing many of the questions that you've been hearing today. This is a nonpartisan race. I failed to mention, this is a nonpartisan race. Lincoln County Commissioner position number 3 running is Mr. Dick Anderson, currently the mayor for the city of Lincoln City. Dick Anderson.
Thank you, Roger. All right. My name is Dick Anderson, and it is my desire to be your next county commissioner. I'm hoping that you've all received your voter pamphlet or have access to your voter pamphlet, because in it is a great deal of basic information about not only myself, but all the candidates that were here and going to be here. It's good basic information. I'd encourage you to review it. In addition, let me provide you with a couple of reasons why you should champion my effort and desire to be your county commissioner. First and foremost, as you know, I'm not a county official currently. So when I sit down at the table, I will be bringing a fresh perspective to the challenges and to the opportunities that exist for this county. The other is 18 to 20 years as a paid elected official is plenty. These jobs, these elected offices were not intended to be made into careers. I think the best thing we can do is thank those who have served, and we do need to thank them, and just make the change. Additionally, I don't know how many of you realize that our Lincoln County government is in the top 5 employers in this county, with a workforce of approximately 400. Now, that workforce is managed by the 3 county commissioners. So I'm encouraging you to think about this election for your new county commissioner as hiring a new director that's going to manage this workforce. And think about the discussions that we've had is generally about what one individual can do or not do as a commissioner. I'm suggesting we advance that a bit and think about what that individual can do about managing this massive body of people called a workforce, so that the results are measurable, so that we increase productivity and services to benefit the entire community at large called Lincoln County. I have that experience, I have that knowledge, I've got that track record. You know, I've spent 35 years in the banking and financial services industry. I managed workforces over 300 people. I was promoted always on productivity of that workforce, not just what I did, but what those I was in charge of. So to me, it's about organizing, relationship building, motivating, and leading a workforce to obtain results. I can do the same for Lincoln County.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. First question we have handed in. Will Oregon follow California's lead and ban genetically engineered salmon? How will you support or discourage this?
Interesting question. One of the things that
I've seen from the county commission, those kind of decisions are made generally by the legislature, and we've just had Mr. Gomberg. So there's opportunities to lobby our state and House representatives that would be making those decisions, and or it'd be up to the vote of the people, which I appreciate most often. So then the county commission role becomes one of lobbying. And at this point, I'm not up to speed to render an opinion. It would be to reach out into the experts and gain their knowledge about the pros and cons, and then make a decision and move forward in a lobbying position for whatever that, I think best suits the people of Lincoln County.
Mr. Anderson, what is the #1 question or issue facing Lincoln County?
Actually, I think it's around economic development. We just had a study, economic study that came out, which was very very positive, but not in all parts of the county. And I think what I want to do is kind of